Hi everyone, I'm Dan Pritchard, co-founder of Tech Southwest and managing director of Astley Media. And this is our monthly tech gathering, which is a kind of new event that's sprung up these last few months. Just one of the things Tech Southwest do is just help join the dots across the Southwest and let people tell their stories, share thoughts on different things. And we'll stay in this session, and then at the end I'll guide people onto the second session. But the idea is for me not to do much of the talking, but to for our guests to kind of talk around this subject of culture. We did a poll at the last tech gathering, and the most popular kind of question of what we talk about next was around organisational culture, and that's just given us a bit of a loose framework, I suppose, to kind of talk a bit about that, but also find out a bit about different companies and different people's perspectives on that. So the first session, we've got Falmouth Launchpad, so we're going to dive into finding out a bit about their world. And shall I just quickly introduce people? People just perhaps just say hello at this point, and then we'll come back to you. So we've got Joe Banks from Falmouth Launchpad. Hi, Joe.
Hi, hello everyone.
Good. We've got Ben Sewell, also from Falmouth Launchpad.
Hi, everybody.
And then we've got our guests, Tim, co-founder and CEO of Codices Interactive. Is that right?
That's right.
Cool. Tanuvi, I need help pronouncing your name because I want to get that right. So
no worries. Tanuvi Ethunandan. Nice to meet everyone.
Tanuvi. Thanks, Tanuvi. So, and Tanuvi is co-founder of Duopoly. Is that right? So yeah, good to hear a bit about that company. And then we've got Ashley from Waving Bear Studio.
Hi, everyone.
Cool. So this session runs through to 10:30, and then at the end of that, we'll explain what's happening next with the Tribe Tech podcast kind of session with another fantastic lineup of guests. So I think this one's interesting because organizational culture, you've got a group of people here, you've got individual companies, startups, fast emerging brands, which is really exciting, and you've got a kind of a parent body, a Falmouth Launchpad itself. So maybe, Joe, could you start with you in terms of, could you just explain what Falmouth Launchpad is for those who don't know? What is it you do?
Sure. Yes, and I think actually understanding Launchpad and what it is the lead into the topic in terms of culture, because we do have two different areas in terms of Launchpad and then all of the startup companies that we support. So Launchpad is a 2-year market-driven incubation and acceleration program with an integrated master's degree based down at Falmouth University on the Penryn campus. It's a transformative program. That's the reason we're there, and that's what we're trying to achieve. Firstly, for the Cornish economy, in terms of the creation of a tech hub to complement all the other tech companies that are in Cornwall, but a specific hub trying to kickstart new tech companies down here. And secondly, for our participants as well, providing them with the environment and the resources to move through their entrepreneur journey and be based here in Cornwall and learn and experience and participate in becoming a co-founder in a startup.
Cool.
We have over 50 companies with us in Launchpad at the moment at various stages, from those who have just entered the programme right through those to those who are in the early rounds of investment. And I think as a result of that, having that wider ecosystem of all different companies at different stages probably adds to our topic matter in terms of that culture and what we're trying to build. It is a unique program. We start with the market opportunity. You identify things where there is a problem or an opportunity where a new tech product could be brought to market. And then around that, we bring small teams of skilled individuals together, some of which you can see on our program, some on the screen today. Some of our participants have been through that. They take those opportunities, those challenges, research them, determine whether or not they're viable and whether it's appropriate to spend time on them and to invest resource in order to start that startup journey. Once they have, they then go through the incubation year alongside studying for the masters in terms of learning the theory and gaining more knowledge and skills and experience to do that.
Yeah.
As I said, we recruit individuals, we then put them into teams. So there's a bit of that links back into culture around that as well.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's great, and that's what sets the scene for this. And I think what we should do is dive straight in and talk to Ash, Tim, and Tanuvi in terms of, okay, tell us a bit about that in terms of your company, and also how weird are these times for you? And this is not the kind of, you don't grab the culture book, but actually how you respond and what you do right now is kind of sort of manifestation of the culture you've probably, generated. You're still quite new as companies, in terms of, oh, right, okay, we have a culture, this is what it is. So, so we'll start with Tim, tell us a bit about your company and how you've been responding to these times and how maybe you think culture plays a part in that. We can't hear you, Tim.
There, but I think you can hear me now. So at Codices, what we do, so we build out live interactive game shows on Twitch. So if you think of a traditional game show, we have contestants watching it and playing on the show. We have everyone who's a viewer is playing along with it. And to do that, we have a product called Quiz Kit, which allows a broadcaster on the platform Twitch to make their own game shows and have their audience play along. And we've got just over 1 million monthly viewers in our shows and about 4,000 broadcasters on there. We also work with media businesses. So we worked with Amazon Prime, we work with the Premier League, and we work with a lot of big game studios as well to produce sort of brand new game shows and live formats. And we're working on a really cool big one, which is kicking off in August, which is going to be about 500,000 players or so. So cool. We very much sit in the middle of building up tech to be able to produce these shows, while also working across the content side as well. Okay. In terms of Launchpad, I was probably part of the first cohort after the trial, so I finished that around 2018 or so. So we're about just over 2 years old now. And yeah, I mean, we have in terms of our culture, it's very hands on deck, especially when you have a live product out there with so many people using it. It's quite difficult to stay on top of things. We have most of our users as well aren't based in the UK; they're based in America. So we always get big spikes at super unsocial times. Everyone will be doing game shows at Christmas and New Year's, and from about when our day ends about 5-6 o'clock, that's when everyone else starts kicking off, and then from there till about 4 or 5 in the morning is pretty non-stop. But yeah, it's been interesting with COVID. I mean, we were used to working in an office together. Luckily, I live with one of our developers who is currently hidden away sat next to me, and another one who just lives around the corner is also working from our living room today. So we are socially distancing and everything, a bit isolating, but yeah, it's
a close-knit team.
Yes, it's we always find it easier to work in the same space, and currently we're quite missing the office quite a bit, because even though the most expensive thing is always just like miscommunications, and when you're talking over things, that's what takes the most time. But we have just recruited another 3 more people who are all working remotely as well. So we do have quite a remote culture as well, and we're just sort of looking for times to meet.
That recruitment piece is really interesting, because life goes on, doesn't it? Companies, some are struggling, some are doing okay, some are doing well, but we're all kind of repositioning and thinking about those things. And the remote working, that recruitment is like, oh yeah, how do we do that?
Yeah. And I think that's the main thing with live streaming as well, because we've had huge growth because everyone's staying at home and looking to do stuff and interact digitally, which, as we focus on that type of content, has been really good for us in terms of pushing out the shows. It's been really interesting to see as well, because there's lots of pub quizzes and things, and again, and by making it super easy for people to do it, it really gives those communities and things that would meet in person something to do as well online, which is cool.
I think it's really interesting. When you talk about culture, you straight away talked about your customers, your people, and then talked about your team, and there's different ways of thinking about your culture actually, in terms of, where are the boundaries, and with tech, of course, those boundaries are blurred, actually, that your culture is sort of, it's internal, but also the external as well. It's really interesting. So, Tanuvi, do you want to tell us a little bit about your brand, your company, and I guess the culture that's evolving in these weird times?
Yeah, so we're slightly earlier on than Tim. So we joined the Launchpad program in September 2018, and we only incorporated in October last year. So on paper, I guess our business has only sort of been incorporated for about 9 months now, even though we've been working on the idea for another year post that. For us, it's myself and also my co-founder, Erin Morris. We started the business as a team of 2. And really, the team of culture came about that I come from quite a data-driven mindset with a financial background, and she was a film director, so very creative. So I think it was that unique synergy that sort of blended together to form Data Duopoly. And what we do is solve the issue that visitors feel when they visit venues of the frustration of queuing, and facilitate incentives to actually shift them away from the busy areas, which is actually quite relevant now.
Very timely, amazing. Yeah. And in terms of Falmouth Launchpad, the culture that Joe and Ben are working hard, and others to kind of foster that. Do you feel that, in terms of that sort of practical support, or also part of that kind of, there's other people who've been on this journey before us, we can reach out, we can connect, we can get help?
Yeah, certainly. And I think the one thing we're all missing is being in the studio. I think it's so lovely in the Launchpad building. It's open plan, and while you might have your own space, but you can just pop along and we might say hello to the Waving Bear guys or have lunch with someone else. And it's just quite interesting to see where everyone else is on their journey. And I mean, we're trying to recreate this remotely. Some people being myself in Hampshire, in Cornwall, and then it was in Suffolk. And we've been using Slack, Microsoft Teams, Zoom to try and make it work. But it's sort of those one-off conversations that we're sort of missing now. Now it's been about 2-3 months of being away from the office, so we're eager to get back.
Yeah. Well, I think in a minute we'll let's ask Ben how the plans are, in terms of that sort of the post-lockdown and how that might look. But let's hear from Ash first of all. So Ash, tell us a bit about your company and kind of, I guess, these crazy times and your culture and how that's helped.
Yeah, absolutely. So Waving Bear is an indie game development studio. We're working on our first title at the moment, which is called Stuffed. It's a first-person shooter. We play as a teddy bear defending a little girl from her nightmares. And the idea was always to take the games we love as adults.
Right up my street.
And make it more accessible to younger gamers, make it cross language barriers, gender barriers, make it a much more accessible shooter than what's currently on the market. But in terms of our culture, I think we can one-up Tim here, where he lives with one of his developers. All of our founders live together. And have done for.
You all live in the same house.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a great idea before lockdown, and for the last couple of months we haven't really got out of each other's hair for a bit. But it definitely.
Wow, that's a whole psychological. That's a whole kind of dissertation in its own, really.
I think we've
living and working together 24/7. Either that or just put the whole thing on a YouTube channel, and we can vote one of you out once every week. Or has that been done before? I don't know.
Tim's the expert on the live shows.
There's definitely something in there.
You got to live together. It's a secret to success. You can't stop.
So people listening. And the audience numbers are still ticking up, so that's either people getting up late, very, very busy days, or getting around their heads around the Hop-In platform. So we're just going to launch a poll as well in the poll section, just sort of asking a question around organisational culture. The other option was to launch a poll about who's got the best backdrop today, and I'm sure lots of people will be looking at Ashley's like shelves behind in terms of there's some cool stuff on there. We won't go down there.
Azuka.
Okay, we can use that at the end. So yeah, people click on the polls tab and take part in that, and then we'll just reflect on that through this session before we head over to TriveTech. So Ben, one of the points there was people are missing that kind of way of just being able to sort of drop in. Obviously there's an interesting space there at Falmouth Launchpad. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you're sort of planning, I suppose, for kind of for that kind of regrouping?
Sure. So Launchpad is one of the big things about it is the incubation space, the physical space that we're in. We've got a beautiful brand new building over 2 floors, capacity of around 200 people, and it's all open plan at the moment. And it's going to stay open plan, but obviously the restrictions around COVID mean that you're specifically trying to get people not to gather and not to sort of stand there talking face to face, which is exactly the opposite of what we're trying to create in Launchpad. So we don't have really, we're still in the planning phases of exactly how we're going to get back together. We've got probably at least a couple of months, I think, before we can realistically start to get significant numbers of people back into the building. The other thing that we do have is a lot of outdoor space. So when it's not chucking it down with rain, we do have a beautiful campus to be on. So I think we'll be looking to use that as best we can to sort of create those opportunities. Lockdown is definitely a challenge for building and maintaining community. We have weekly get-togethers. We sort of have a midweek mingle every Wednesday where either we bring in external speakers or people come in. But we do a lot of we have regular touch points between the staff and the teams, and we really try to encourage that peer contact. So when somebody comes with issues, things they need to resolve, we will. A fair chunk of our work is to sort of facilitate those cross links within the team, as well as linking people to external sort of support and opportunities, which is a lot of what Joe does. So we're really what we want to create in Launchpad is a really high support but high challenge environment. So if we can inspire people through what they see sort of in those more eventy type things that we do on a Wednesday, and then provide the support both through sort of the professional sort of staff support, if you like, but also that peer-to-peer learning. And that's kind of what we're really aiming for. It does take that additional bit of effort to make it happen over COVID. And it's never the same as being in the same room as somebody, but it doesn't mean that we've entirely lost what we're kind of building.
Yeah, I'm also really impressed that I can hear a slight seagull soundtrack as well, in terms of, you've got that Cornwall soundtrack down to a T, some of you, whoever's got that going on outside the window. No, I think that's really interesting. And I guess for new cohorts, because if you like Tim is sort of, a cohort in 2018 has gone through that and is now set up and is sort of, the company's growing, etc., etc. That's one thing. If you're coming to this new with your new concept and how's it going to work in that combination between physical space and the tech to be able to kind of, here's me, but I need to be part of this wider community as well. So that's one of the things we're looking at.
Yeah, we do a blended model at the moment. So the part of the program is that we train with a master's in entrepreneurship. So the sort of the aim is to have a blended model where we have teaching, large scale teaching would happen more online and with digital. That's where sort of education stuff generally is going in any case. And then to put a lot of the effort on sort of contact time into small groups, which are easier to manage from a sort of infection point of view as well. So that side of it is, I guess, easier to manage in certain ways. I think it's just creating those incidental conversations. I think is a challenge that to be honest, we haven't really cracked yet.
Yeah, everyone's on that journey.
We have chat channels and all the rest of it, but it's creating that kind of incidental thing.
Yeah, of course, because within the company there can be sort of a certain sort of pulse or heartbeat potentially in terms of gatherings and others, but then across companies, that's sort of quite hard, isn't it, in terms of fostering that supportive culture.
I think,
Joe, I'm going to jump in.
I think that's where our hub with all of the staff and all of the teams we've got, if we're all conscious of the difficulties of making those incidental conversations or those the connections, it's harder as we're currently working. So definitely a lot more work for me and my colleagues, and also for the teams themselves, in recognizing when you can connect someone, when you can suggest that someone else has a bit of knowledge and actually instigate that rather than just say it and move on. I think it just takes that little extra step to be aware that we can push those connections a bit further, and consciously be aware of doing that in order to drive efficiency and create that community and that it to be much stronger as a result of it.
Yeah, and those communities are so important. If you think of Tech Southwest, you think of Software Cornwall, Tech Spark, actually, exist for reasons to join the dots, celebrate, showcase, practical support, the informal stuff as well, the chit chat, that's all part of it, isn't it? So, I think it's a really good point. So I think what we need to hear from in our final sort of 7 or 8 minutes is back to our 3 kind of exciting brands and the journeys they're on in terms of, I suppose, maybe is there like a learning from this period that actually is going to sort of change the way you work or the products you create? So that could be something around your customers and a need, or even something internal within the organization. So Tim, should we start with you, put you right on the spot?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely interesting around, being able to go in and speak to people and get advice is always really good. The thing with starting business, you can't really tell anyone what to do, and you can't, because every journey is so different that, you can't cookie cut and take anything and apply it to everyone. So that's being able to drop in and have those kind of conversations is probably the most useful side of it, and just getting those bits where people have done stuff before. I think from what I've found working on stuff now, like, it's really fun at the beginning when you're concepting and deciding what to make, and then to build it and to make it out is, that's probably the worst part. It's not fun. It's a bit fun because you're seeing stuff happening, but you're constantly trying to test stuff. We do trials and things with like certain streamers to see if shows work, and stuff breaks. We have to go back. We have to fix it. People will be pushing builds, and then we'll be pushing them back, saying this needs to be better. This needs to be better. And at the end, it only then becomes sort of fun and interesting when you put it out there and you see everyone using it and playing about with it, and actually people enjoying it as well. So in terms of our culture, what we really strive to do is to get stuff out there in front of people as quick as possible. And I think, and that's, it's nice when you work in a shared office because you can go and you can show people and people will give you constant feedback about it, which again, because the whole point of culture is just to keep driving and to keep making stuff and to try and enjoy it. And I think, for us, we do put out quite regular updates. And the important thing that we sort of adapt to now, particularly with COVID, is that we just make sure that we're getting enough stuff out there. We're doing enough live demos with real audiences and people playing to keep the motivation up. Because when you're trying to make something that's good and you're working hard at it, it's that's probably, in my opinion, that's the worst bit of it, and it's not always fun. So Hey,
it sounds like you're doing an amazing job. So that's really good, really interesting. Thank you. Tanuvi, so from your side, maybe a learning from this period into that's going to take forward, or reflection on the Launchpad culture. It's great to hear from you.
Yeah, so I think for us, the key thing is because we're building a product that helps moving away from queues and crowds, and originally just came from our own frustrations that we just wanted to enjoy a day out and not be stuck in a queue.
You mean you don't like queuing?
No, really not very British of us, but we don't like it. Yeah. So we're sort of pivoting and developing a feature to help people say, actually, now it's not just about for the frustration, but it could also be a benefit with social distancing. Actually, visitors know, this is quite a busy area. Do I want to come back at 3 p.m. when it's less busy using our algorithms? That's really informative and really making data-driven decisions. So a big learning for us has been using our existing technology, sort of applying it quite quickly and putting it out there so it's useful for venues to use. And it's been really exciting to see the response from venues, people engaging with it, and actually, hopefully using it in the short term and maybe then going on in the longer term. So I think for us, it's been quite agile. I think we've had to respond to the current situation, shift what we're doing, reprioritize. I know for us, personally, we were very much pen and paper people. I know we're doing a tech business, but we love just drawing on a whiteboard together or writing lists down on Post-it notes.
Nothing wrong with pen and paper.
And it suddenly came to a world where we had to put everything on Slack. We had to use Trello and do official sprints. And we found actually in some ways it was a lot easier to see our productivity because it's quite clear to see what's been achieved in a week. But at the same time, you still have that flexibility, and I think we all have our own little side list on paper.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think a lot of people will be nodding, wherever they are across the region involved in this. That taking those steps and the learnings you get from that and what works for you. And it's not one size fits all, is it? But actually, those kind of tools are there. Thank you. So Ash, from your perspective, in terms of a kind of a reflection, a learning going forwards for your company, your culture.
I think the biggest takeaway, before COVID, all of us were working in the same studio. Since then, we've grown the team, nearly double the size we were before COVID. And we're working with people in LA now, working remotely. We've got them working from home. And we've never really seen remote work as an option. We very much like to be in person. We like to be able to bounce ideas off each other. We like a whiteboard, like Tanuvi said. But we've really kind of adapted quite well to the remote working. And it's working quite well for us. It's something we could quite easily carry on after COVID. And working with the guys out in LA, that's something we maybe wouldn't have considered before. We'd like them a bit closer. We can meet them. But going forward, it opens up the whole world of developers and people to work with. But as well as that, a lot of our event calendar was based around going to conventions, whether that was gaming conventions for users or developer conferences. That's all moved online now. And again, that's made it much easier. We've met people we didn't think we'd meet before. It's been, it's a lot easier to send an email saying, can I have a 20-minute video call than to try and nail someone down in person. So, I think just working remotely has been the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, and I think that's an amazing point, and that is such a thing for the Southwest, because for a long time everyone's had to kind of get on that train and get up to London. What's the point? And geography doesn't matter. And the Southwest, with this sort of strange peninsula that sticks out. 4 years ago, when Tech Southwest started, we were having conversations. Well, will Devon talk to Cornwall? Are we going to actually come to a joint event? It takes an hour and a half. All this kind of stuff, and then it's just grown and grown and grown. And of course now. It's such an amazing opportunity for the Southwest. I think it's a really interesting sort of learning point.
Just to add to that as well, as someone who travels to London every week before COVID, I am very happy over the last few months. All
right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of us for that. The first poll, thank you. It's great that the vast majority are really kind of, thinking about their culture, actively kind of putting things in place around that. I see a second poll has just been launched by the silent and unseen Joe. So thank you, Joe. I probably forgot to mention it. That's what stands out to you as the most important aspect of organisational culture. So we've got 2 minutes left. So people, please vote on that, and we'll have a quick fire final kind of score on that, which would be interesting. And there's a whole kind of range in there in terms of people to get their heads around. And let me explain. So first of all, I want to thank the guests. So thank you. It's a whistle stop. It's speedy. It's pacey. So we can't go into in depth, but people listening and involved, do talk to Joe, do talk to Ben, go and have a look at the Falmouth Launchpad website. It is an amazing kind of institution, and what they're doing there, and it's a kind of, it's not just a Cornwall thing, it's a South West thing, it's a national, it's a global thing. We've heard that already, and so I want to thank all our guests and the wonderful brands as well today. So thank you all. So as people vote on that poll, and I'm keeping half an eye on that, and I think Joe has to kind of flip to get the result before I can see it, so I can't actually tell you let's have a look. Oh no, I can. So here we go. So employee voice and communications is the top with 20%. No, leadership approach, leadership top 24%, then employee voice and communications, and then a bit of a kind of a mix in terms of work-life balance, business purpose, health and well-being, but leadership and the employee voice and how you kind of get those communications going. I suppose those probably would have been quite high before COVID, but I guess in these times that comes to the fore even more in terms of setting the direction, setting the tone, how employees engage and talk with each other. So thanks everyone. Thank all my guests today. Thanks for being part of Tech Gathering. Don't leave. We're going to head over to the next session, and that involves everyone in an orderly fashion clicking on the sessions button. There is you might have the leave button top right. You can click that and then head to the sessions button, where we'll be joining Robert and Fayaza and another wonderful lineup of guests for the live Tribe Tech podcast. And then after that, we've got a little bit of time. There's an expo area where Rocket Maker and a few other companies are kind of set up and go and have a look at. And then there's the networking. But right now, we'll head out of this session, the Falmouth Launchpad session, head to sessions and join Tribe Tech. So thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.